Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, James Latwell, and this is part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. And with us today, we have John DeDakis, who has a new book out called Enemies Domestic. And I mean, it couldn't be more ripped from the headlines. I mean, if you had, waited until now to write this book, John, I mean, it's timing is everything.
Timing's everything. Thanks, Jim. It's good to be with you. It's also good to be able to talk about this book. It's definitely timely.
It's definitely timely. Now, if you don't know John, you can find him at conferences all over the country. But John is a sought after book coach, successful author, and his background is amazing as a journalist. We might get into a little bit of that, but I mean he's been in a number of interesting positions, and I think that is kind of influencing what he's writing here, especially in Enemies Domestic. John, can you tell folks a little bit about the storyline in that book?
Sure. And you're right what you know. My background is journalism. I was a journalist for 45 years, covered the White House for the last 3 years of Reagan's administration, worked for 25 years at CNN, the last 7 as one of Wolf Blitzer's editors on the Situation Room. And so you're right what you know. And Enemies Domestic, I mean, I write as a woman. You can go there if you want. There's probably a 12-step program for that. I write as a woman. My protagonist, Lark Chadwick, is pregnant. It's her first day on the job as White House press secretary. And the first question she's asked is, are you or are you not planning to abort your unborn child? And so that thrusts Lark into this highly toxic and politicized and polarized situation. And so that decision, she's reluctant to be a single mom. The dad is dead. And so that question of whether she's going to go through with it propels the whole story. It's at a time when abortion is a crime in many states. And it also happens to be a time when the president becomes a dictator. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? And that sounds vaguely familiar, John. But
we shall see. We shall
yeah,
see.
we shall see. But Lark Chadwick is such an interesting series character. I mean, how did you come up with the idea to have her as the main character? And what was your process in creating that kind of a unique individual for this book?
Lark is, in many ways, Lark is a lot like me. She has impulse issues, she has anger issues, and so she's struggling to try to work those things through. I did not purposely try to calculate doing something, really edgy by writing as a woman. When I started writing the character 20 years ago, someone suggested that I should write in a way that stretches who I am. So I'd never been a woman, at least not in this life. So I discovered, though, that emotions are not gender specific. We all have the same emotions. It's just that in my experience, it's the women in my life who are more willing to share their emotions. They're more articulate about them. And so I just found writing as a woman fun to do. And then, of course, I had a lot of female beta readers who helped me make sure that I got the voice right. It didn't hurt to be at CNN surrounded by young women in their early to mid 20s who then became beta readers and would let me ask them what it's like to be a woman. So I think that's where it first began, and then it's just been honed over time.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there, because the way you've crafted Lark, it doesn't come across as just any character and you happen to dress her as a woman. I mean, she seems authentic. The emotions are real. So you've whatever you've done, the magic behind the keyboard, I mean, that comes through, because she seems like a fully formed human, and she's a very great woman to follow.
Thank you. I mean, coming from you, that means a lot. So I
Thanks.
appreciate that.
Now, the book opens up almost immediately as Lark has been appointed as the White House press secretary after a tragic incident. How much of that environment and milieu that you tossed her into came from your experience as a journalist and as a White House correspondent?
A lot of it did. I mean, obviously, I covered Reagan, and so that was before cell phones and the internet and all that. I've got friends who do cover the White House, and so I've been able to, you know, get into the head of a 21st century White House correspondent. But a lot of it also was based on the, I think it was 3 years that I spent in the White House press corps. And there was one time where we actually covered, we followed Larry Speaks around for a day. Larry,
Mm,
Reagan's press secretary. And the whole purpose of the piece was to show the adversarial relationship between the White House press corps and the White House press secretary, because it was Larry's job to make Reagan and his policies look perfect. It was our job as reporters to find out what's really going on. And I think a lot of people don't understand the dynamics of that relationship. And so, as it's turned out, all of my novels, all six, have a journalism backdrop. And what
yeah.
I've discovered, the more we live life in this highly toxic situation, is that a lot of people think they know what journalists do, but they don't have a clue. They really think we sat around at CNN thinking, how are we going to get Obama elected? That's just not the way it works. It's an adversarial relationship, and it making things up is a firing offense, literally a firing offense.
Yeah, the relationship between the White House press secretary and the characters in your book, I mean, it really kind of highlights what a pressure cooker job that is. I mean, we see pieces of it on press releases and news things, but I can't imagine the ulcer-inducing stress that would be in people in that job.
Yeah, I think that's true. I never got an ulcer, but it wouldn't surprise me. And there was one producer I worked with who, he popped, Pepto and all that all the time. It was. I'm glad I'm gone from that. I do not miss the day to day anymore.
I, I bet. I bet. Now in your book, I mean, you mentioned the abortion issue and the pro-choice, right up front, and that is a thread in the book, but it's not. I didn't take that as the end all be all of the book. I mean, there is a propulsive thriller, threaded into this book, and it filters in, abortion, insurrection, dictatorship, like you talked about. But what I found interesting, John, was the way you approached it. It wasn't preachy. It was like a journalist. I mean, here you are, readers. Here it is. Make up your mind. I really like that about this book because there's so much emotionally charged stuff here, but it's like, here it is. Make up your mind.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was my biggest fear, is to be preachy. And I did not want that to be the case, especially because abortion is so controversial. And I wanted people to feel that no matter what their position is about abortion, and there's not just, two sides, there are
Right.
several sides,
Right.
that I wanted people to come away feeling that their position was fairly represented, because it's nuanced, it's controversial, it's complicated. Um, and so that means a lot to me, that your takeaway is that it wasn't preachy, because but at the same time, it's controversial. It's a
Oh yeah.
political thriller, and we're in the middle of a political maelstrom, really.
We are. And I again, I can't imagine how shook up your magic 8 ball to figure this is the book that's going to hit right now in the middle of all of this.
Well, it helps to be married to Cindy. Cindy is my wife. We've been married coming up on 47 years. We
Mhm.
have coffee every morning at 8. And Cindy is a very smart person, and she reads a lot. And when the Alito abortion decision leaked, she said, "You need to write about this."
There you
And
go.
and I mean, look, over the years, we've had a lot of conversations about abortion. In fact, let's be honest, sometimes they've been arguments. And so she's got me thinking a lot about things. And then this particular book, I wrote seat of the pants. I like to plot my books out, and I like to have an idea where I'm going. I had no idea. And so every day the process was blank screen. I'd get my characters talking to each other. Relief. I actually produced something. I'd take it up, show it to Cindy, and then we're back at despair again.
I noticed that in your author's notes that this was a book that you wrote organically. That seat of the pants thing, because we've talked before, and you're a plotter. I'm a plotter. What was it about this story that made you go to the dark side and become an organic writer?
That's a very good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that, and I haven't explored it, other than to say this. I mean, I think every project is different. I've discovered since maybe my fourth novel, Bullet in the Chamber, that's the first time I really felt comfortable with seat of the pants writing,
Mhm.
because even though I discovered in that novel I hadn't planned effectively enough. I
Okay.
knew how it was going to end, or at least I had a pretty good idea of it, but there were a lot of points along the way that I didn't know what was going to happen next. And so I started to do a lot more seat of the pants writing. And one of the things I did in Fake, which is my fifth novel, is that um, I was stuck. And so what I wrote in all capital letters is Russia does something provocative here. And that broke the logjam, and I was able to keep going. And as I wrote, I figured, oh, Russia could do that. So I continued writing as if Russia did whatever Russia did. And then in the rewrite, I filled in what Russia did. And because I think the goal here is to keep that forward momentum,
Mhm.
because you can get stuck in a rabbit hole and overwhelmed, feeling, oh, I have no idea where I'm going. If you can get the characters talking to each other, I that for me works, and it allows you to have forward momentum.
Yeah, and you can feel that momentum in the book because I was surprised when I read the author's notes after that this was organically written because I mean it's got such a nice flow and structure, and you actually surprised me like two or three times in the book with some of these twists that came up. It's like, yeah, I'm reading this and I think, okay, I know where John's going to go. It's like, oh no, he took a left turn here,
Right.
and I mean those were really pleasantly surprising, and I think you pulled them off really really well.
Thank
So
you.
it's working.
Again, coming from you, that means a lot, because that's what I think any good writer tries to do is, and as part of it is structure. I mean, most people aren't aware that novels and screenplays are structured in a very specific kind of way. You want that to feel seamless, but the goal is that at regular intervals you want to throw something in there that's a twist, because you don't want people to go, oh, well, I know how this is going to end. No, you want to surprise people, and if you can surprise yourself, all the better.
All the better. Very true. So, I mean, you touched on, your journalism background, kind of filling in the characters and helping you kind of create the scene that Enemies Domestic lives in. But what is it about that experience that helps you and makes you a more effective writer? And I've asked this question of other journalists that we've had on, but I'm interested in what your take is.
I'm not sure. Maybe try asking the question a different way. Maybe that'll break something loose.
Yeah, I mean, what is it about being a journalist
Okay.
that when you sit down at a typewriter or a computer gets you moving on a project?
Fear. But that's part of it, is that when you're on deadline,
Yes.
they don't call it a deadline for nothing. I mean, you really can lose a job over missing a deadline. But and I think one of the things that makes a journalist a potentially effective novelist is that there's an economy of words. You don't have a lot of real estate as a journalist, to tell the story. You have to tell it efficiently. And even though a novel is maybe, 80,000 words, it's one building block at a time. Each sentence has to be succinct. And I think that's the secret. Journalists know how to do it effectively and succinctly. And I think that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of captured it there. There's an economy in your prose, but it's not sparse. It's very rich,
Thank you.
but it gets you through the story and it keeps you moving along. And I really appreciated that about your writing in this book in particular.
Thank you. Man, oh man.
Yeah.
Can I take you home with me?
Cindy would not like that.
Oh, okay.
So what's next for you, John? What are you working on now?
Well, I'm in procrastination mode on my memoir. I've written 5 drafts.
Wow.
The basic, I've gone through a gazillion different working titles. The one I'm with now is Plot Twists, a Memoir. Basically, I've tried to identify the pivotal moments in my life that have gotten me where I am today. And Cindy has read it finally and signed off on it because, we've been married for so long that she's part of the story, but she's an introvert and doesn't really want to be part of the story. So we found a way for me to be able to tell it without her being embarrassed and all of that. And so it's with a couple of beta readers, and I need to cut another 10,000 words. So I'm hoping that this coming year, it'll see the light of day. But we'll see. That's what I'm working on now.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're gonna finish up with something we call 3 quick hits,
Uh-oh.
and it's 3 quick questions. But I want to put you in Lark's headspace, so you answer these questions as Lark would.
Okay.
What's Lark's favorite cocktail? What does she like to drink?
She likes Cabernet.
Okay. How about what's your favorite music? What does Lark listen to?
She's very eclectic. In Fast Track, she kind of likes Sade, which is, it's sort of, smooth operator. It's very emotive. She likes piano jazz, a lot of sort of instrumental, thoughtful, pastoral kinds of music. Maybe Miles Davis, Oscar Peterson, some of those classics that allow her to emote and think.
Yeah, I see that fitting her character.
Thank you.
And finally, what's Lark's greatest fear?
That's hard. She's been on the defensive a lot, and she's been guys. It's hard for her to trust men, and so I think her biggest fear is being taken advantage of.
I could see that with her. Yeah. You have subjected her to quite a bit there, John. Yeah,
I know. I know. Sorry about that, Lark. She'll talk to me about it tonight.
Oh yeah, she will. Folks, we've been talking with John DeDakis. John's new book, Enemies Domestic, is out there. You couldn't get more current and relevant, so you might want to go grab this one and take a look at it. John, it's been a blast to talk to you.
Same here, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Take care. We'll see you soon.